Okay. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're all doing fantastic. So, I haven't done a live in a while, and I often talk about the necessity of sobriety and how it can really help you, and how one of the things that I really enjoy about Islam is that it calls its members to be sober. Now, you'll hear a lot from other faiths, Hindus smoking ganja, shamans eating amanita muscaria mushrooms, pagans doing, smoking tobacco rituals, occultists doing even more weird rituals, you name it. Christians will say Jesus turned water into wine, therefore wine's permissible, and this has led to countless women drinking and really ruining their health. And country music, which Christians listen to in America on a high scale, has a lot of whiskey commercials and whiskey, rum, brandy, you name it. These are alcohols that are synonymous with, Americana, with American Christians. And then with Italian Catholics, it's Merlot, Sauvignon Blanc, Sangiovese, you name it, Cabernet Sauvignon, wines essentially, Pinot Grigio. And this is not something that's good for society. It's something that harms society. And last night, it's New Year's, right? So that's the time when I would argue there's the most drunk Americans in the United States. They are getting hammered. The amount of noise last night really woke me up. I didn't sleep too good. And one of my neighbors got drunk and was trying to kick down his own door, saying, he was cursing, freaking out, cops came. But he couldn't control himself, and it's just sad when people get drunk and they do things and say things that they regret in the morning. And what's fascinating is every time a woman drinks alcohol, she is only harming herself, her health, liver, kidneys, digestive system, brain cells, but she's also putting herself in extreme danger. And I wonder if ever Americans can go back to being more of a sober culture. But I do think it was the French and the Italians and the Irish who really normalized day drinking. And day drinking is something that is very harmful. Something that, you feel sorry for people. And if you do an experiment, there are VPNs. If you switch to Mexico and then you go on X, you'll get a bunch of ads for Tecate, Modelos, and different types of alcohols, and usually junk food. And it's just really shocking how people will not really notice how much alcohol is pushed, and they really make a choice to keep pushing alcohol. And if you think about how many people are in jail because they got drunk and got into bar fights, they're away from their families. It causes so much problems. But if you try to take the liquor bottle out of the hand of a Christian, they'll fight you for it. They will literally fight you for it. Assalamu alaikum, Shuja. Nice to see that you have finally started covering your eyebrows, despite initially being arrogant and making fun of my demand initially. You can still see my eyebrows. You will still see my eyebrows in the future. So you didn't win. It just depends if it slides. Some days you'll see them, some days you won't. Oh, 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 oh. It's so funny. But, anyways, the amount of alcoholics as well has really grown in America. And why is it that people can't have fun without drinking? I always thought this was really quite strange. Why can't they just enjoy people? And what's even more weird is like podcasts. There's Club Shay Shay, and he'll always have some type of liquor there. You will have Joe Rogan, who's always pushing intoxicants. He's hardly ever sober. And even though he carries his liquor pretty well, it's really shameful when you see how his friend Bert Kreischer is an alcoholic. When you see Joey Diaz, he's gone sober for a little while, but you know, he still pushes different substances. And you just feel sorry after a while for people that they can't operate in the world unless they are under the influence. And when you're nauseous or dizzy or seasick, you want to be clear-minded. You want to be sober. But then people intentionally make themselves ill with alcohol, pills, and whatnot. And one can look deeper as well and ask, what is it about American culture that makes people want to drink? Why do Americans cling to the liquor bottle so heavily? Why is it that in poor communities you will often see countless liquor stores? You can get alcohol more easily than you can get organic food. I always found this to be really strange. And some people have speculated that one of the reasons why alcohol is so pushed is the bread and circuses narrative that Karl Marx pointed out, was that, you have to keep your population entertained and docile. And alcohol prevents people from having a sort of class consciousness and prevents them from becoming better. And that the elites know how to handle their alcohol for the most part, but the poor's not so much. And they don't really care about what happens to us, as long as we're there to work, get taxed, and be sent to war. And that's a very nihilistic view. It's a very nihilistic view, but at the same time, there's some truth to it, isn't there? When you really analyze who benefits from keeping the population sick, because alcohol does ruin your body, ruins your mind, and alcohol doesn't make you a good parent. It's really strange. AMW says, poor people struggle with problems so they continue to drink to cope. Yeah, some people do use intoxicants as a counterfeit form of relaxation, a sort of pacifier, and depression cure, they think. But alcohol in and of itself is a depressant, whereas there's other intoxicants that are uppers, but then they don't let you sleep, and then you're just spiraling out of control. I just wonder why humans today, they have a hard time just dealing with reality. You know? It's really quite strange. And so, hopefully, we can all do better and help people to get sober and motivate people. Now, alcohol and drug addiction really destroyed people in my family. And so it hits home when I see people really overly indulging. I had two stepmoms who were alcoholics and a stepdad who was an alcoholic. And when you're trying to argue with someone who's drunk and you're sober, you begin to hate alcohol a bit more. And the countless men who end up going to clubs and cheating on their wives, and the sheer amount of women who will cheat on their husbands because they're drunk or tipsy, is alarming. And yet, you will have people fight for the mass production of alcohol. And I have mentioned, why is it that if we were told we don't have water, we're told don't have kids because there's not enough water. If there's not enough water, why is the water being used to make soda and alcoholic products? Right? Salam Babarji, perfect time with this topic. I know, right? I was thinking about it. Why is it that water is taken away from people and given to alcohol companies? and that alcohol companies have more of a monopoly on the water supply, right? It's something quite strange. And people will say, like, you know, oh, prohibition in America was really bad. But if you look at it, once they legalized it, now it's everywhere. You go to restaurants. I mean, I don't think there's one city in America where you can't find something alcoholic to drink. And I was looking up some data on, how many Americans struggle with alcoholism, and it was way over 20 million. And that's alarming. Now, healthcare costs quite a lot. Liver transplants cost quite a lot. My grandpa had a dear friend, who's his dear friend, and then his wife's, right? They're a couple. They both had alcoholism, and they were dying from liver cancer. And I have an aunt who's also dying from liver cancer. She'll be the third aunt to die from liver-related problems due to alcohol. But when you see someone slowly dying of alcoholism, their eyes are yellow, they have a very blotchy cheeks, those miniature varicose veins on their nose, they look very ill, and still they will hunger for a cocktail. Magic says you can't make drugs illegal. That only increases drug use tenfold. You must remove the cause of addiction, like child M. I agree that you have to, but see, I think you have to tackle both. I think that you just have to have worse punishments. And that's where the labor camp idea comes in. Where if you are an addict and you're not producing for your society, you must be forced to work. That you don't have the right to be a leech and problematic person and menace to society. That if you have to be put in a facility where you'll have a microchip put in you, and you'll be put to work, whether that's making clothes or working in agriculture, working in a stone quarry, like with marble, granite, whatnot. You will be put to do a duty and forced to be sober, instead of sitting in a cell using up electricity, using up water, and consuming resources and contributing nothing back to society. The punishment for the manufacturers and the dealers and the transporters, it has to be more terrifying and, one dare say, draconian. Putting people in a cell isn't scary. There's the carrot and the stick method. And I think the stick method would do well. And you can come up with creative things that make people not want to do that anymore. And hard labor cleanses the soul. Work cleanses the soul. So people who get caught manufacturing stuff, they should be forced to work. Mena says, I heard that it starts as social activity, then it ruins people's life. Yes, some people start as social drinkers, and then they build the habit of, well, it enhances my perspective while I'm with people. And Duncan Trussell has really pushed that. Nadia says, what does Sharia say about alcoholism or drug addiction? I've read hadiths about where one drunkard was beaten, and one was beaten. I believe that you would be have some type of physical punishment to deter you from such behavior. But I haven't read a book on the fiqh of punishments for such infractions. So that would be a good book for someone to write. I've learned about funerals, process, and marriage rites, and things like that. But I haven't come across a book yet that outlines the procedural process for handling drunkards and addicts in such a way. That'd be a good question for someone to ask Sheikh Hussein Al-Hakim, or somebody who's well versed. Maybe somebody's written a book that I just don't know about criminal law under Sharia law. you know? We need more Muslims publishing books in English, translating from Arabic to English to Spanish to other languages. Okay. But from my perspective, I think America has to reform their criminal system because it doesn't work what we do, and the amount of people in the prisons, they're not contributing to society. So, you know, making them learn a trade, putting a chip in them, so, you know, because this China has the Skynet system, and I think a lot of countries are going to go that route, where you have social credit scores. And yes, that can get abused, but at the same time, the technology of tracking a criminal, I think, is smart. And as crime rises and AI builds up, you know, we can have solutions, you know, for how we track these criminals. Mena says, yes, and spreading awareness is so necessary. In countries like the US, some people even feel it's weird to criticize drugs and alcohol. Yes, I get attacked a lot by my fellow Americans for not being someone who drinks and doesn't smoke weed and stuff like that. And when I tell them, hey man, both my parents were addicts. I mean, my mom used crack, she drank, and my dad used cocaine and smokes weed every single day and drinks. I mean, when I just go through my family history, and then someone, if they're honest, they'll be like, oh dang, like that's horrible, man. And you're like, yes, so naturally, of course, I wouldn't be somebody who would defend drugs. I notice when I hear liberals and libertarians try to defend, you know, the legalization of all drugs and say that, you know, alcohol is good, they can, you know, they haven't really had to deal with somebody who struggled with that addiction. Baberji says, being sober can be boring, or am I wrong? See, this is the interesting part, isn't it? How do you get rid of boredom? Now, there's a lot of fun ways you can get rid of boredom. It depends on your budget, where you live, what you have access to, and learning about your own interests. See, me, I like to work with my hands. So I'll be in like a garden. I have pet birds. I'll paint. I'll draw. I will cook. I will write poetry. I will study theology, philosophy, history. I will go bird watching. I'll stare at the ocean. I will do a lot of things to keep my mind engaged in something. But others, they kind of want their reality to be force-fed to them. They're kind of a bit lazy, and alcohol and intoxicants are a fast way to make your brain go to a different dimension and not have to do any heavy lifting. You know, some people will get sober, but they zone out on trash TV, right? So the way you combat boredom can be solved in a multitude of ways, but you have to find those ways, and some people don't want to do the heavy lifting. My mom struggles with that because she'll always say she's bored, and then she eats, and she's overweight because she's no longer using drugs. She's sober, so she has that problem. Even though I've given her advice, she don't really listen. Magic, addiction has nothing to do with boredom, rather desperation and misery. The Elusive says, how does being in a state of drunkenness make you feel happy if you can't even remember or know what is fun? That's a good one. I think it's because those people live in the moment. Their brain resets, you know, every 6 seconds. And then they wake up the next day feeling horrible and very sick. And they feel that whirl. They don't really look at what's happening. Magic says, it's about forgetting and escaping your misery and desperation. Having fun is second. That's an interesting perspective. I heard people who struggle with heroin, they've often said escaping the misery. And those people, they clunk out. You know, their heads dip. When you look at the kinds of intoxicants that different people choose, it breaks your heart. From fentanyl to ecstasy to LSD to PCP. I mean, it's just alarming. And then how many people mix things together. You know, I remember there was a rapper named Juicy J where he bragged about drinking codeine, which is a element I believe that was in cough syrup. But it's alarming how many people will mix different things together in their bodies and then totally damage their organs, and then when they get sober and they have something to live for, the damage they did to their body is done. You know? I remember in high school there was a group of people who came to talk to us about oxycodone, when the Sackler family was really pushing it because too many youths were getting on opioids. And in America, opioid abuse is a big problem, and so it's really sad. Magic says, I choose weed because it's safe, otherwise I'd be smoking crack and meth and opium all day, which I've done. I think weed is very addictive. Elusive says, yes, cough syrup. Okay, thank you. The thing about weed is that it takes you to a different mind frame, and then you get used to being in that mind frame, and then you want to always go back to it. It's like a portal. I always wondered, why has my dad smoked every day, all day for years? And when I try to talk to him, it really irritates me because you know when you're talking to someone who's just blasted, and it's frustrating because they can't really be a proper parent. And he'll say he's not addicted, but I mean, my entire life he smoked. So I mean, how can you call yourself not addicted at that point? You know, it's something that you have to look at, as in, why not just confront what it is that is in your mind, in your abyss of your mind? I think if people confronted what it is they're running away from, and just dealt with that pain, they wouldn't want to do escapism. You know? It's something. Because you can put your energy into something great. Like, think about it. Every time you get high, you're benefiting the government who hates you. Because if you want to change things to be better, you have to be sober. You know how many people I knew who were really smart, but they started smoking weed and drinking, and then they just turned to be weird. Like, they look fried. They don't sleep. Their eating habits are bad. And they just changed. AMW says, you get slaved easily. Yeah, you get enslaved very easily. And you're like, wow, this person was really going to have some potential, but they gotta break free, you know? Magic says, some people drink coffee every day. It's as powerful as weed. Well, weed is hallucinogenic. I made myself a little, vanilla latte. I mean, I'm tired, and I have a little cup of coffee. I wouldn't say a coffee is similar to a blunt, like the THC content isn't the same as caffeine, but there are some people who do drink too much espresso. I will agree with that. But if you're having 2 cups of coffee a day, that's not the same as 2 blunts a day. Accumulate says, I do smoke as well. Interesting. I would just say be very careful. Salam Jobaz, Salam Elusive, because you can get stuck there. And if you write down your thoughts while you're in that realm, on sativa or whatever, and then you look at it again in the morning, sometimes you can't even remember what you wrote. And sometimes you'll get into a paranoid state. And sometimes someone will say something to you and you will interpret it the wrong way. And you'll read into things that aren't there. And you also have to think about your lungs and how painful lung cancer is. And you also have to think about the smell, of your neighbors, and how you're an easier target. Whenever you're not sober, you're prey. Whenever you're not sober, when an emergency happens, you will not be as prepared. So, If you want to be more prepared, more alert, more intimidating, more on your game, being sober is better. Mena says, my dad stopped smoking cigarettes when he retired at his 60. He promised himself and us a lot that he'd stop until he made it 2 years ago. That's great. Alhamdulillah. That's really great. My grandma smokes, my mom smokes, and my dad smokes cigarettes. You know, it's really, both my stepmom smoked and my stepdad as well. Smoking is something, and it's not even like, if you were to grow your own tobacco, like how the tribes did, then maybe you'd have an argument, because it'd be a plant, you would dry it, wash it, all that stuff. But the chemicals that they now put in that stuff, you know, and how much it costs you, is terrible. On the corner from where I live, there's people who smoke on the corner. They throw so many cigarette butts on the ground, and it is gross how many cigarette butts are all over the ground and in the gutter. And what's scary is there's these beautiful trees over there, beautiful bushes, and all it takes is for one of them to just flick it when it's not out, and that'll cause a fire in our community. As you know, California suffers from fires. And so the carelessness of some of these people is wild. And cigarette smoke is very choking. It's very stinky. You know? And I really just hope that some people, they'll realize how the smoke is aging them, making them have bad teeth, bad breath, and, you know, throat cancer, lung cancer, stomach cancer. Those are pretty intense. You know? Mena says yes, and smells bad. Yeah, and there's Marlboros, the native spirit, the one with the Indian on the box, menthols. They're all very stinky. You know? It's really sad. Magic says tobacco is way worse than weed, although I smoke both. At least you're honest. At least you're honest. Yeah, but I mean, and think about what's gonna happen to you if you have to carry around an oxygen tank. You know, an oxygen tank. My grandma has to have an oxygen tank, and some people still won't stop smoking, even though they have an oxygen tank. My theory about smoke is the breathing exercise. I think what's unique about smoking is people like the way the smoke moves and the way it makes you breathe. So if you light incense and then you focus on your breathing, maybe you wouldn't, and you created a more relaxing environment, maybe you wouldn't feel the need to smoke as much. Think about a fish tank. If you have a fish tank, you know, the sound of the water, watching the way the fish move, especially koi fish, that could actually help you. Could really stimulate you to relax. Because there's so much stress. And also finding healthy ways to laugh. So if you want to not be bored, and you want to process pain, you got to funnel your energy into a hobby that makes you level up in skills. Whether that's horseback riding, maybe you want to do some homesteading, maybe you want to go on a jet ski. I don't know if any of you have ever been on a jet ski, but those are incredibly fun. Magic says, why is weed and hash socially acceptable in Muslim and Arabic countries? On Scholarly Subtitles channel, Sheikh Suleimani said smoking is haram and hashisha is not allowed. So I think it depends on the scholar you talk to be quite honest with you. I've never traveled to the Middle East, so I couldn't really tell you. You know, that'll probably be a question for somebody who lives there. You know, but that's a good question. You know, maybe that's just part of the ancient culture, maybe. But, you know, that's a phenomenon we'd have to look at anthropologically, you know, and wonder where that tradition came from, you know. Sheikh Murtaza Khan also says cannabis isn't allowed. So I guess it really just depends on what sheikh you're talking to. Kind of like, you know, how some topics are debated, to be fair, you know. Magic says, you're right about fish tanks and motion. Yeah, I mean, I don't have the space now. Inshallah, maybe in the future, when I have more space. But koi fish, I get to go look at some koi fish in a pond not too far away. And I posted videos of them in the past, giant koi fish. And I really enjoy watching them. And sometimes on my phone I'll put ASMR of fish tanks that don't have music, that just have the sound of the tank. And there's great lighting and great, saltwater coral. And it's really pretty. I used to go to this gym back in the day. It went out of business. But in the middle of the gym, there was a giant fish tank. Beautiful fish in there, saltwater fish. Subhanallah, was gorgeous. So I do enjoy a nice fish tank, and I'm also able to be by the ocean. California does have the benefit of being by water. So the waves, being able to hear the sound of flowing water is quite relaxing. And California during the rain season, that sound of the trickling rain is quite beautiful, I must say. So think about it. And also, if you have land, think about a beehive. Getting your own honey. There's so many fun things you can do within a budget to help your boredom and pain go away. You have to do it. It just takes some investigating into yourself. Really self-reflection. And honor yourself. Love yourself. Know that every time you take an intoxicant, you're weaker. What if your enemy or a criminal comes upon you? What if they decide this is the time to attack? Koi pond if you have land. My dearest friend, before she moved, she had a nice koi pond, and her koi were like 6-7 inches long. And I follow some koi pages on Instagram. So there's tons of different kinds of koi fish, and some are more rare in color than others, and different sizes. But yes, koi are awesome. So also for relaxation, there's a lot of different teas. Tea culture that the Chinese have is very beneficial. The green teas, black teas, valerian root. I mean, there's so many really cool Chinese tea medicine remedies that actually really help. I mean, subhanAllah, when you get yourself a nice whole leaf chamomile tea and you brew it nice and strong and drink it, it is relaxing. You can feel it. You can feel it in your body. And over time, your body is going to get used to these new habits, And having a nice piping hot tea, like real tea, not the fake tea that has, sugar, artificial flavors and whatnot. But real whole leaf tea, your taste buds renew, and then you get used to it, you get accustomed to it, and you like it. Assalamu alaikum, chill sounds. So, get into something. Whether, I really got into cheese for a while because there's some great cheese markets in California. Lots of artisan cheeses from France, Spain, Italy, and also locally made cheeses. And you can make cheeses. I've made feta, I've made queso fresco, I have not learned yet how to make mozzarella, Magic says, I feel alert and on top of my game when I smoke weed. I smoke before I drive or play basketball or intense video game. It really does allow my mind to hush up so I can focus really well on one task. The video game element is addicting. You gotta be very careful because video games and cannabis are an addicting combo. Very intense escapism. That is a hard one to break free from. Very hard. Yusuf says, hello from Jordan, assalamu alaikum. Magic says, but weed also destroys my multitasking ability. Yeah, especially if you have ADHD and ADD, which I have. I can't, you gotta really be on top of your mental game when you have ADD and ADHD and don't take Ritalin, which I don't take anything for it. But the video game and weed combo is one of the strongest realms to get attached to. It's very hard to break free from that. Barbara G says, I heard most cheese is made out of animal enzymes, which is not allowed to eat. Dairy is halal. I don't know why dairy is made from animal milk. If I can eat a cow's heart, I can certainly have some nice cheese. So I don't know who told you that. It's really quite sad. So remember, if you want to get sober, it's going to be a battle. You're going to have to fight against your desires. There's going to be times where you slip up. There's going to be times where you think you can't do it. And you really have to examine yourself and say, I don't want to be in a hospice care in my old age and be weak. Because as we get older, our bodies can't handle what we put it through in our 20s. You really got to make sure that you are able to be strong in your old age, because cultures are losing more and more respect for the elderly, and the young are being more audacious now. So if you're going to be old and weak and you don't have someone to take care of you, and you're going to be in an old folks home, that I don't think that's a great idea for you to destroy your health in your young age. You want to preserve your health as much as possible. It's essential for you. So think about it and really make sure to treat yourself better. Like, imagine, you ever had like a really bad stomach ache and you're like, man, I wish I could find out what caused this. I want it to go away. This is horrible. This, and that, right? And then when you feel better, you're like, oh, that's awesome. And you're back to your strength again. Every intoxicant slowly drains you, and our organs are very fragile. We forget that because they're on our inside, right? And the sheer amount of cancers now, from brain, throat, prostate, stomach, intestinal, is alarmingly high. And we got to do better. And so there's also women who they drink when they're pregnant, and you're like, that's incredibly sad. We can't even get women to stop drinking when they're pregnant. And then people will say that America doesn't have a drinking cultural problem. And in England too, England has the pub culture. We're going to go to the pub. Every 2 seconds it's like, hey, you want to have some fun? Go to the pub. And then you expect to find a good wife in the pub. Women who are alcoholics, women who love to drink, they're usually not very trustworthy. And the problem is people think they can change somebody. You met her in the pub. You don't know what she's done when she's been hammered. And you think you're going to turn a hoe into a housewife. It's very difficult, And when men hook up with these women who like to drink, and then these men are like, okay, she's going to change once we get married, right? She's going to change. Most often they don't change. What did you get yourself into? Now you're going to divorce her and she's going to get a bunch of your assets. It's quite scary. It's quite scary how some men will make excuses to drink and then have a woman who drinks. And the weirdest part as well is if you know your wife drinks and she travels, like she's going to go visit her friends or her mom lives in another state, and you're at home and she's out there traveling, drinking, alone in a bar with her girlfriends, and you think nothing's going to happen, it's like, that's crazy. Because alcohol is called a spirit for a reason. Because it really changes the way in which you operate. And when you mix cannabis, cigarettes, and alcohol together, your mind is whirling and twirling, and your whole strength is weakened. It's literally sapping you. It's literally destroying you. Salah says, Trump administration will go very hard on Muslims. They are all Zios amid all-time high anti-Muslim sentiment because of the thing. Yeah, it's sad and it's scary. You know, it's really unfortunate. I guess more Muslims just have to really do great dawah, give to charity, do public things of kindness. You know, just keep being good and let the waves go as they will. You know, when the ocean gets rough, you stay on your boat, you keep going, and you pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, I am hoping that Trump fixes the economy, because food costs a lot for such little groceries, and there's a lot of wait lists for the food banks. So there's not enough food charities, and it's not fun to be eating out of a can all the time, you know. So we'll see what happens, inshallah. Inshallah. And also, maybe more Muslims can post, you know, things that you don't have to publicize the charity you do. But if a Muslim does something good, they should publicize it sometimes, I think. Because you gotta combat their propaganda with good media, you know? Because the media only ever frames Islam in a bad way. And so Muslims have fallen way behind in the propaganda wars. They really, really have. They've ignored creating movies, ignored creating documentaries. They just haven't done very much. Meanwhile, our opponents are creating things all day, every day, and it's just really sad. Muslims don't really like to collaborate with each other. We seem to want to infight way more than build, and I find this to be really, really sad. Really sad. I know a lot of Muslims also struggle with weed, and so I really hope that brothers, for the most part, it's been brothers who struggled. I don't know any sisters who struggled or confessed to have struggled, but I really hope that brothers can keep strong, because the more you smoke, the more addicted you become. And I don't want any of Muslims to have lung cancer. You know, Magic says Muslims should cooperate to the maximum like Jay did. It pays off. We need to keep the money in. We need to take care of each other. Exactly. I really like, we need more halal businesses. We need more halal butchers. We need Muslims owning clothing shops. We need Muslims opening grocery stores, you know, hotels, you name it. We gotta get serious. Celis says, the anti-Muslim sentiment is rising because of the attack. Yeah, but it's also been rising steadily because people are paid to do it. If you recall, I did a post where I listed all the accounts. Tim Pool, PBD, Asmongold, Riley Gaines, Lily Dis, Jack Posobiec, Radio Genoa, Clown World, PBD Podcast. I mean, TJ the Amazing Atheist. I mean, countless feminist accounts. Tulsi Gabbard, Dan Crenshaw, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz. I mean, the list goes on of how many people, you know, really work hard to just spread anti-Islamic stuff. Yusuf says, I applied for a lottery. If I get it, which state would you recommend I go to? I think gambling's haram. I think lottery is gambling. But you should go to Hawaii. Or Alaska. Or you should, you know, because lottery is gambling, so I think it's haram. But if you won the lottery, then you would have no excuse not to live in a Muslim country. And you got to remember, the American IRS is going to take a lot of your money in taxes. So look up past winners in America, and look how much the gambling took out. Oh, he means immigration lottery? Oh, my bad. Sorry. Oh, my bad. You meant immigration lottery. I'm thinking about the gambling lottery. Oh, okay. Oh boy. I mean, that's a tough one. I would say if you have property, you want to buy land, you can go to Alaska, have your little farm. You want to go in places where it's safe for Muslims. California is expensive. I mean, I've had some people attack me because I'm Muslim, but I would say that California, on average, liberals are more tolerant to Muslims than right-wing Christian conservatives. But again, I know there's a lot of Muslims who live in Texas, right? But it depends on what you want to do. Do you want to work in Silicon Valley? Do you want to open a dairy farm? Do you want to have your own mechanic shop? It all depends on what you want to do, you know? Stuff like that. Magic says Dearborn, Michigan, or somewhere warm and conservative like Texas or South in general. I don't know if I think that some people say the South is very friendly people, you know, but the thing is about how they'll view you. Well, it's not easy to identify Muslim men unless they wear that little hat and a thobe. But if your wife is there with you, that's who faces discrimination. Yusuf says, I want to enjoy the nature in California. California does have beautiful forests. Napa Valley, I mean, the redwood trees are gorgeous. The coastlines are absolutely stunning. If you like water, fishing is great. I mean, there's a bunch of seals. If you go into the bay, there's whale watching. But California is very expensive to live. And if you have kids, you should try your best to put them in private school or homeschool. Yusuf Noor says, when I went to Raleigh, North Carolina, I received Southern hospitality and everyone generally was really nice. But bear in mind, this was 30 years ago. Interesting. Mashallah. Stella says he wants to pursue the American dream just like others. Yeah, the American dream is totally possible, but you gotta know what you want to do. You know, you gotta know what you want to do. You want to have a landscaping business? Do you want to do tree work? You want to work in construction? Maybe you want to open a museum? It all depends on what you want to do. Yusuf says, I like the coast. I'm not married. Oh, okay. Then, you know, save your money. Find a nice, calm part of California to live in. You know. And make sure you look at the crime rate, like San Bernardino. You don't want to live in San Bernardino. You don't want to live in Richmond. You don't want to live in Oakland. You need to be careful of San Jose. So you got to really research, you know, what county do you want to live in that fits your budget, and research which communities are the safest. Because there's a ton of gangs, you know. California has a lot of gangs. So you got to be very careful. And do not live in San Francisco. Do not live in San Francisco. I mean, the sheer amount of carjackings in San Francisco is alarming. Very alarming. Magic says, is the American dream still there? I gave up and left the country. I think for some, the Chinese do very well when they come to America. I mean, their first generation got nail salons, they got hair salons, massage parlors, the halal ones, not the haram ones, and laundromats, and they also have Chinatown. I really admire the Chinese people. You know, they have a language that's so different from English, and then they come and they open up businesses and restaurants. It's fascinating, you know. Yusuf says, California is a high-tax state with a lot of red tape to open a business. Steer well clear. That is true. There is a lot of taxes. That is true. Yes. Very true. Baberji says, for this generation, how do you feel about 50-50 in marriages? Divorce can happen. We are in inflation times and retirement, etc. For a long time, when I worked, I did 50-50 with my husband. But now, I don't do 50-50 because I am a stay-at-home mom. I feel more happier and more feminine letting him pay. And, you know, how do I put it? Work husbands and work wives are a problem. You know, if a woman can make passive income online, and maybe she wants to buy some groceries or something, I don't think that's a problem, but I think if a woman looks deep down inside, the more she pays the bills, the less masculine she sees her man. And the more she kind of desires for a Romeo to kind of pay everything and make her feel like a princess. The older I get, the more I perceive this. Now, when I was younger, I had a blue card, they call it. And the blue card was when you are under the age of 18, you have to have your parents sign for you to get permission to work. I started working at 12. I had a paper route. I mean, I worked as a telemarketer. I worked in a Chinese little food place that was kind of like, it was like China Express. It was kind of like a Panda Express knockoff. I worked in Dollar Tree. I worked in McDonald's. I have worked in fine dining. I've done a lot of different kind of jobs because my grandpa taught me that hard work is very important. And um, when you're young, you can work, but when you become a mom, I think because of there's so much low trust in society, I think you got to let your man take over the finances and you handle the children. You know, you know what I mean? And back then, there was online stuff was difficult to do. The internet was not as advanced. Now women can make money online, and you don't have to go to a physical office. You know what I mean? So women have more options now to earn money without leaving the home. And you know what's really cool? A lot of women have food trucks. They have food stands. They make food and deliver it. They do catering. They are hired private chefs for older couples. So there's a lot of cool stuff where I know a lady who does a salon out of her apartment. She cuts hair in her apartment. That's her business. And she gets paid cash. So you see what I mean? There's a lot of ways for a woman to make some dough without having to go to a physical location and work for a corporation. Right? We have a lot more options now. But I don't know, man. Women always like the gentleman. And if they don't, they might change their mind once they have a newborn baby and they feel exhausted and they want to stay home and be with their children. But then when the children fly the nest and they're like college age, she may want to have a part-time. All depends on what she wants to do with her free time. Me, I think I will read more, go to the library a lot, maybe be a tutor, maybe even be a nanny. Maybe I'll be a nanny. Something like that. You see what I'm saying? So it all depends on the type of woman, but don't let someone take advantage of you. Be careful. There's a lot of women who they just want you to fund their lifestyle and then they'll just use you and dump you. Magic says, isn't women being forced to work a sign of the end times in Muslim eschatology? Ooh. Okay, women being forced to work being a sign of the end times. The only person I listened to who talks about eschatology was Imran Hussein, I believe his name is. And he talks about Gog and Magog and Israel and Russia. But the end times I thought a sign was when a woman gives birth to her own master and stuff like that. So I'm not sure. I haven't got to study eschatology a whole lot. I'm still studying Tawheed and different fiqh of funerals and marriage and the basics of hadith. I don't have a book on eschatology yet, unfortunately. Babaji says exactly why I asked that question, taking advantage. Yeah, you gotta look at the woman. Because some women will stack their cash while you pay for everything, and then they'll dip out once they found a bigger whale, So you really gotta look at the values of the woman. Because I met my husband, when I first met him, he had roommates, and he had a motorcycle, and I met him when he had nothing, and I stayed with him. Even when we went through tough times, I had to ride the bus, and we had to put our groceries in the stroller and push it home. We didn't even have a car, and now I get to be a stay-at-home mom and he works. You see what I mean? So You gotta have somebody you're dedicated to and who's down for you. Yusuf says, "What are the Islamic limits of men's well appearance?" I think you're not supposed to have haircuts like the kuffar, from my understanding, and you are not supposed to advertise, like have shirts that say Corona and whatnot, and that you should have your beard that if you grab it, it has to be at least as long to where the hair's poking out of the fist, from what I've studied, you know, and that you can put kohl on your eyes, I believe it's called, you know. Adim says, "What's your opinion on the black pill?" The black pill is cynicism and nihilism. Um, it can get out of hand if you don't know how to let go. Okay, let me give you a good example. That's a good question, the black pill. Okay, so people, let me give you an example. I saw a post on X that said, "When I go out, I hate that it looks like I'm in Calcutta and no one speaks English." And I made a point of saying to that person that there was a time where Mexico didn't speak Spanish. It was all indigenous languages. Now today, they speak Spanish because of the Spaniards who colonized, and now they're also learning English. So no matter what you do, languages change, new words are invented, people move, and you gotta learn to let go and know how to migrate, how to move, how to learn swing with the punches, and to know what you can and can't control. And it reminds me of that book, that Tao Te Ching, by the Tao. It has a different pronunciation, but just learning how to kind of let go of what is possible and not to become doom and gloom. Now, there are certain things where you can become doomed out for legitimate reasons, but I think you have to step back and look at whatever the topic is and then really compare and contrast both sides so you get a good synthesis of information that you can analyze and process to where the black pill doesn't have such a detrimental effect on your mental health to the point where you check out and really just become a black-eyed nihilist, where so you don't get these shark eyes, the great white shark. You don't get those little totally checked out mannerisms, because if you get too black pilled, you won't want to be as productive and you won't be able to laugh as much. You know what I mean? Yusuf says, "And all the while they will be like, 'I'm a girl boss, stay away from such types.'" Yeah, girl bosses, be very careful, fam. Be very careful. Thank Allah I never became a girl boss. It'd be a very... I never... no. I like nature too much to want to be a girl boss. Magic says, "I read the eschatology bit on Wikipedia, so it might be wrong." Yeah, Wikipedia is suspect. They used to be very credible, but, man, their politics section... I don't know, man. You gotta be super careful now. You gotta be super careful. Magic says, "I love the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu." Yeah, exactly, yeah. I wanted to read it on the channel, but I just don't have the time. I don't have as much time as I did before. But I've read it in one of my classes in literature, and it's very popular amongst philosophers. So I'm like, just some of the examples it gives you on how water erodes stuff, and you just really gotta look at it. Yusuf says, "One last question. I use English at C1 level. How can I jump to C2? This is really important to me." I'll give you some old-fashioned advice that you might laugh at, but getting a thesaurus and a dictionary and writing them out in a notebook, like the definitions, and then go through the whole book several times, writing every line, can really help you. I know some people will not like that. On my blog, I post dictionary posts and thesauruses. I have a thesaurus that's from the 1932, and it has the old words that I really love, because the English language now has gotten dumbed down. Now they say a man is a woman in the dictionary. They sold out. But if you get a vintage copy on Etsy for like $5, and you study and read it, you'll learn. You know, there's been some prison inmates who they go through the whole dictionary in their cell. I have a thesaurus in my husband's truck that was from an inmate because she brought it out from prison and she gave it to this old man, and this old man brought it to my husband at work. It was very weird. He's kind of a strange guy, the customer. He leaves books a lot. But I opened the book and I saw what she wrote in it, and you know, she read the whole thing. So in prison, inmates will come out a little bit smarter when they read those dictionaries and thesauruses. You know, Yusuf Noor says, I have read books that have been updated to today's generation, and they've been made to neutralize gender. It's sad. Like Think and Grow Rich. Oh, finance books? Yeah, I don't enjoy finance books because it's just not my wheelhouse. It's a lot of math. Magic says dictionary did get bad and full of slang after 2000. Everything before is fine. Exactly. Very, very true. Very true. So that's what I would recommend, is that you go and you get out those books. I know people, it may be boring. Don't use an app. Like, there's apps that like are Duolingo. Trust me, you're not going to do much with an app. Sit down, you know, and relax, write in your notebook it out. You'll get muscle memory, and then you'll see how it changes. User says, it's not so much a finance book, more so a mindset book. Oh, okay, self-help. Yusuf says, oh, how to be the best version of yourself. I see a lot of that in the bookstores. They have whole sections on that. Interesting. Those types of books seem to be very popular, very new agey. You know, I think bookstores, they go through these trend cycles. You know, just like if you go into bookstores now, there's a lot of books on Rome. You know, it's it's oversaturated. I had a book once that said, like, power up your brain. Yusuf says, it was during the 1930s, to be fair, written. Oh, the book that you got? Because I like vintage books. Vintage books have better English, you know, and stuff like that. Magic says, what do you think about color revolutions? What do you mean by color revolutions? I don't know that. What do you mean? Explain what that is. You're talking like Black Lives Matter? Or are you talking about like, is that like a movement name? I haven't heard of that. You know, but Ukraine. That's what it's called, Libya. The Ukraine situation is quite sad. I really hope they can come to peace. You know, because I can't tell the difference between a Ukrainian and a Russian. You know, never been to Ukraine, never been to Russia. I couldn't tell them apart. But I do know that we've given quite a lot of funds, and homelessness is rising in Washington, California, and New York. So I'm very, very worried about poverty. Libya, I've watched a couple of documentaries on Gaddafi. When it comes to Egypt, I mostly know ancient Egyptian stuff, not modern ones. Yusuf says, like Bolsheviks, Chinese Revolution, etc. Now, the Chinese Revolution was really cool, but I've learned more about ancient Chinese culture, Chinese food, Chinese medicine, but I haven't really studied the inner workings of Tiananmen Square and all that stuff. And the Bolsheviks, I've heard a lot about them, but I haven't got to read a book on them yet. The Arab Spring. Now, the Arab Spring, I've seen a couple documentaries on the causes of it. Was it intentionally done by the CIA? And stuff like that. That one's harder, but when it comes to revolutions, the most I know about is the American Revolution. And I really like to read about battles more than revolutions, you know. Noor says, do you have an interest to travel abroad? In my old age, yeah. Like, go on a cruise and, you know, I really want to go to Antarctica. I want to go to Antarctica. and I want to see what that's like all the way over there. And I would like to do some food tourism of China and train tourism of Japan, because the trains in Japan are unlike anything America could ever do. Okay? The trains in Japan, from what I've seen, I watch travel videos of Solo Travel as a YouTube channel, and I really wish I could do that. So Japan would be a great one. Magic says, I mean, there was color revolutions in Ukraine, Libya, Egypt, Sudan. These color revolutions are done by Serbian corporation. They started with Slobodan Milosevic. Interesting. I'm not informed on that, but that sounds like you are really interested in that. Yusuf says there's going to be a halal cruise to Antarctica in January 2026, inshallah. For real? You can't go to, you have to fly to Antarctica. You have to fly there. And I've looked at, the hotels they have over there. It's gonna be rough and it's very, very cold. But and they have Starlink, so you can get internet. But I want to see what that type of desolate landscape looks like. I think that would be quite amazing. The silence and all. And there are trains in Sweden, from what I've seen, during the winter time, the Scandinavian countries, and you can go on a nice train where there's you look out the window and there's lots of snow and stuff, winter travel, stuff like that. User says, no, you fly to Argentina first and take a boat to Antarctica. The temperature is about 8 to 10 degrees Celsius at this time of year. Oh, I watched a guy who went there recently, and he said he flew in. So, interesting. Maybe there's different ways you can go. Because Antarctica is pretty frozen, ain't it? I don't know how a boat can get through there. Wouldn't there be a lot of icebergs? Mike says the CIA funded NGOs, non-government agencies, the NED, New Endowment for Democracy, are a huge extinction level threat to the Muslim world. I hope that the Muslim world can boost their economies and really get food security underway and get their water supplies under control. May Allah help them, preserve them, and help their men become the best and brightest that they can be. People need jobs. The economy is a really important factor to how a nation does. And people got to be able to have jobs to earn, And hopefully they can put their minds together and develop that, because oil money, as the world goes more green, oil money is gonna, not be able to be allowed forever. In California, they want to ban the selling of gas-powered cars by 2032, I believe it was. Noor Indra says, food tour journey in Silk Road, starting from China and Laozi, predominantly Muslim area, Xinjiang to Uzbekistan is a great adventure idea. Dang, that sounds awesome. Man, that would be so cool. Seeing the real Silk Road going on there, that'd be amazing. Chinese food's my favorite food. Sushi is my favorite food, but not Japanese cuisine. Chinese cuisine is my favorite. If China was a Muslim country, I would probably want to live there. Chinese medicine, Chinese tea, Chinese work ethic, and Chinese food. I just really love it. I love it more than Italian food. I love it more than Mexican food. I love it more than barbecue. Man, I can't get enough. I can't get enough of it. I got Bell's palsy, and I got Chinese acupuncture, and then I also had some Western medicine, and I got cured. But acupuncture, I think, is really, really cool. And I'm glad I was able to get it, because it helped the nerves in my face repair themselves. It's fascinating. The Chinese have a great way with food. I watched this guy, Uncle Roll, on YouTube, and he really does a great job on teaching you how to cook everything. Everything. You know? Because there's American fusion Chinese food, and then there's, rural Chinese food, and then obviously there's different classes of Chinese food, like what the rural people eat versus the super wealthy, then the street food, you name it. But the Chinese diet is really good. And man, they know how to cook every part of the animal. I really admire that. Have you tried Jordanian shawarma? I have shawarma seasonings. Um, there are some Middle Eastern restaurants that I get baba ganoush from, and lamb kebabs and falafel from, but they don't say Jordanian. It doesn't tell you on the menu what region it's from. It just says the name of the restaurant. You know. Magic says, I've seen videos of LQ affiliated Chinese Muslims from Xinjiang in Syria. Say what? That's wild. That's wild. Over 50% of the fighters who took over are foreign from Central Asia and the southern Russia Muslim republics. Is that true? I never even heard of that before. Yusuf says, I'm hoping to go to Xinjiang via Kyrgyzstan this summer. That's awesome. Man, good. Have a great trip. Alhamdulillah. That's great. Adim says, Vegan Gains will dislike this video. Vegan Gains is still around. I remember him debating somebody, I remember his videos from like 9 years ago, where him and the Amazing Atheist, TJ Kirk, had like a fallout or something. Vegan Gains, I remember that guy. But he kind of got more angry, didn't he? Like, he got kind of more reactionary, I believe. He kind of shifted his content, But I did the vegan diet for 2 years. I lost a lot of weight, I wasn't that I was fat or anything, but I just wasn't a diet that sustained me very long. I like some ribeyes. I like beef liver. You gotta just buy from humane certified, organic, pasture raised companies that don't inject hormones. You just gotta source your products better. You should say shawarma is something else. It tastes very, very strong and nice. Interesting. I wonder, maybe some brothers can open up a nice Jordanian food restaurant. The most restaurants I've seen in California are Italian and Mexican. And then there's a bunch of fast food. So it's really hard to get other ethnicities. Really hard. I don't know why. Maybe Americans just aren't as curious. But I've seen videos of where they make the food, and there's a spice merchant on Etsy who sells Middle Eastern spices. I think it was called something like the Bedouin Company. It had a name something with Bedouin in it, and they sell some pretty cool stuff. Yusuf says, is a niqab allowed or must be worn? That's a tight debate. Very tight debate. Above my head, to be quite honest. Above my head. But, I read a book called Fiqh al-Haya. And the hijab is not just a garment, but it's an attitude and form of mannerisms. How you carry yourself, overall loose clothing. You get what I mean. Sheikh Asim al-Hakim, there's so many different opinions, but the guy, oh man, I just forgot, I can't pronounce his name. He's a black brother from Somalia. Abdur Rahman, there's so many names. But he does it with, that guy Tim, right? Oh man, he's a good brother too, he's so smart. But he said he did a 7-hour video on the niqab and said it was mandatory. But Sweden just banned the niqab, and we know that Egypt also, from my understanding, banned the niqab, and that's what I read, and that India has also banned it. So it's getting harder and harder for women to wear it, and France has banned it as well. So you do what you can do, you know what I mean? I think it's better for your spirituality, but if you have a hard time breathing, like they should put like around the mouth, they should have like a thinner fabric that you can't really see through, but it's more airflow. I think people will be fine, you know. But it really depends on where you're at, and if you have asthma, do the best you can, you know. Magic says, if I were a woman, I'd wear a niqab for anonymity. It's nice to be invisible, though. I like it. Because people leave you alone. People don't harass you as much. You know? Why did Egypt ban the niqab? I read that they did. Magic says, the niqab isn't banned in Egypt. I'm in Egypt right now, and I just saw a niqabi woman right before I went home. I heard that they banned it, though. I heard that in Egypt, the authorities like grab Muslim brothers and interrogate them. That there's a lot of oppression going on in Egypt. I don't know if you type in on. I know Google's not the most reliable, obviously, but Egypt bans niqab. Type it in, and you will get news articles about it. But maybe they're just not enforcing it as much. I'm not sure, but I do remember reading multiple articles saying that they have gotten rid of that. You can wear the hijab and the khimar, and stuff like that. But yeah, Magic says, and you can see I'm in Egypt by your YouTube demographics. I don't look at the analytics anymore because I'm really shadow banned, so I don't really trust anything it tells me anymore. I don't really believe my analytics anymore. I don't even look at them. It takes views away. I'm completely throttled. So, like Brother Jake, Jake Brancatella, he said his channel got banned for covering, shadow banned for covering Syria. And he's going to create a second channel, but that doesn't work because I have a second channel, Bibliophile Hermit, and people do see more posts on there, but I can't get past 100 views. And I've done multiple tests and such. Sometimes I'll search for my YouTube channel, and sometimes it'll show up, sometimes it won't. So, I don't really trust the analytics. And now that we know that Tim Pool, Patrick Bet-David, they get favored in the algorithm because they're against Palestine and they're pro-Zio, we can kind of see who's in charge at YouTube and how they're social engineering. And Muslim channels are not really favored on the platform, So I don't attach my trust to the algorithms or anything in YouTube anymore. And there's too many bots, there's too many bots. So what are you gonna do, Yusuf says, to find out who rules over you, find out who you can't speak about. Exactly. Magic Asmongold is the algorithm darling too. He's really gross, that guy. He didn't take a shower for 30 days. He's oh my, that guy. His room, they took a picture of his room and it's really dirty, and even the maid was disgusted. And that guy, he was really against Palestinians. It's really gross. I don't know, man. Is he even good at video games? Like Rad Brad and MK Ice and Fire is way better at video games than him. So, and they don't even like show their faces on camera. They just focus on the game. I don't know why people watch Asmongold. To me, he's not even a good gamer. I don't really see his appeal. Magic says he's lived with roaches. Yeah, wasn't there a point where a roach crawled on his shoulder or something like that? It's really, really gross. That guy has an addiction. You know, he has an addiction to playing games and not loving his own self with his hygiene. Matthew says, I don't follow him, but I remember the algorithm pushing him even before Oct. Siete. 7. Yeah, very true. Yusha says that was his punishment. Hadim says, is he left wing? I wouldn't be surprised. I've heard people say that he was right wing, but when I glanced at him, I believe he's more left, in my personal opinion. But I try to keep his stuff out of my feed so I don't interact with it. So, maybe somebody who's subjected themselves to his content could inform us. Noor says, how's the Muslim community your place? Are they treating you well? I have seen some Muslims around. There was a nice sister who worked in the grocery store I go to with my family, but I think she quit. I haven't seen her. She has my number, but I don't have hers, you know, because I gave it to her because she wanted my daughters to play with her nieces, and I said, okay, we can meet up for a play date, call me. And I gave her my number, but she never called, and I haven't seen her in the grocery store. My little Tot, the youngest, isn't at the age where she can behave very well in the masjid, so I haven't taken her to the masjid since she's been born. And my husband works 3 jobs. He works 7 days a week, so there's no one to take me to the masjid. He can't take me, and it's too far away to walk, you know. To walk there and walk back would be very time consuming, and I'd have to walk kind of by a very, very, very busy road, and there's not a good guard railing there, and a car can easily veer off and smush you. You know, and breathing in all that, the fumes is not really healthy. So maybe when, inshallah, the youngest is potty trained, I think that would be better. You know, because doing salah at home is already hard because she plays and she climbs on my back, or, you know, she's trying to get into something she's not supposed to. So trying to pray at the masjid and trying to get her to hold still would be really hard. And, you know, it's been a while since I got to go back there. I think 3 years. You know, when I was pregnant with her, I stayed home and I wanted to be away from the world. I just wanted to hibernate, eat good, drink water, have relaxing showers, stay in peace, sit by the ocean. I really isolated myself from people as much as possible to stay safe, to protect my mental health. But so far, alhamdulillah, everything's fine in the community. When I see a Muslim, I'll give the salam, but I haven't been able to hang out with anybody, you know, unfortunately. Maybe in the future, inshallah. Thanks for asking, Noor. Carlos says, may Allah bless you for your effort in this deen. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. I really strive hard. Don't forget to check out all of the hadith volumes we've done. Riyadh Salihin. I've done quite a lot. Pretty soon we'll be finished with volume 1 of Sunan Abu Dawood. You know? So, got hundreds of hadiths written on the channel. You know? It's really amazing. And subhanAllah, I want to be a really great scholar in Islam, but I don't have the money to pay for the classes right now, and I have so little free time. You know, at night, to study, I'm exhausted by the end of the day after I get the kids to bed. So doing a class online, I would probably fall asleep because I'm so exhausted. You know, but we'll get there. Adine says, I think the parrots also want to be featured in this stream. Oh, yes. They definitely do. They're actually being quite quiet for once. I gave them some millet. I don't know if you know what millet is, but they love millet, so it's like a little yummy snack for them. So they seem to be entertained, you know. I have a conure, a pineapple green cheek conure, and then I have 3 budgies. Yeah, mashallah, tabarakallah. I love birds. Man, I love birds. I hope one day in the future it's my dream to have an African gray parrot. I love parrots. And then a sun conure. You know, the the big cockatiels that are the white ones. They have like a mohawk, and they kind of like are very aggressive. I don't like those parrots because they learn bad words, and they swear at you. They don't listen. Budgies have the best sound to me, because they're always chit chattering. Lovebirds, I had a lovebird named Uhtred, and he squeaks really loud, and he's very aggressive, and he beats up the budgies, and that's not cool. But my conure is the most loving bird. That's what's really cool about conures. They have a lot of emotional intelligence. A lot of emotional intelligence. He's a very smart bird. Budgies are not really as smart. They kind of freak out over everything, you know? Adim says, have you seen the lyre bird? They can literally learn any sound. I haven't. I have to look it up. Igara says, Assalamu alaikum, how you doing today? Pretty good. It's a gray day, going through our rainy season, but mashallah, because so many people are at home because of the New Year's, they all got their hangovers, unfortunately. There was no line to do laundry, so that was great. Mashallah. And my husband brought me a breakfast sandwich and like a coffee, so that was good. Mashallah. And then I had some nice beef minestrone soup. And so then I also got to figure out what I'm going to cook for dinner. I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do. But I've been eating a ton of eggplant, asparagus, and sauteed spinach lately with fresh squeezed lime juice. Adim says, Lightbird can also make sound of chainsaw constructions. Oh, crows can make sounds of, like, with that car beeping sound. Crows are really cool. If I had a farm, you have a pet crow, I would really like them. Crows are pretty cool birds. Parrots are awesome because they want to be your friend and you can domesticate them really easily. Crows are cool because they have a sense of humor. Like, they will see a cat and like pull their tail. Seagulls also, when they're in the cities, are funny because they steal your food. I always thought that was really cool. Magic says, I just looked up conures. They seem very lovable and appealing. Yeah, they really are. I'm telling you. And when they bite, it doesn't hurt as bad. Because they don't bite you because they're mad at you. They bite you, it's like they nibble on you. They don't want to hurt you. Yeah, the cat one gets really funny. The cat one? You mean like... Oh yeah, when they like terrorize cats. Yeah. Crows are brave too. Sometimes I watch the hawks and the kestrels, and the crows will chase the hawks and the kestrels like they ain't afraid. And crows eat baby squirrels. Crows are hilarious and brave, and they remember you. Like, they remember stuff. And I really like the sounds they make. Some people get mad at crows. They think they make ugly sounds. But I like it. When it's rainy and gray and they're like all in the trees and they all make in unison, they make their cawing sounds. I think it's just beautiful. A very lovely sound. And when you and there's a lot of oysters, mussels, clams that are on the beach, like in the mud, when the tide recedes and the crows go down and they pick up a mussel shell, go up into the tree, they drop it from the tree on the ground, it cracks open, and they eat. And if you go under the pine trees, you'll see how many of the crows have successfully opened up the mussels and eaten them. And it's really cool because they're so intelligent. And then you get some cool shells that the crows found for you, that you can make it in art projects and stuff. So, you know, you could pick up those shells, bring it to your compost garden, and really enrich your soil, or put them in your fish tank. Crows, I think also crows have just a beautiful color, that shiny black. I always feel bad when I see a crow that isn't very healthy. And crows get really sick when they eat out of the dumpster of certain places. They don't look as pretty. When you see a nice fed crow, they're gorgeous, shiny, like just amazing. Magic says, I once saw an old crazy homeless guy that literally controlled the crows. Hundreds of crows. I couldn't make this up. Crows have good memories if you're kind to them. They remember faces. Somebody did a study once where they wore a weird looking mask and they were mean to the crows. And then he wore that mask a day walking and the crows tried to attack him. I don't remember the name of the study, but there's videos out there you can find of it. But just demonstrating the intelligence of crows and their memory. I found that to be quite amazing. Because I've dealt with different kinds of birdie birds, and crows, they're so unique. And the weird thing about crows is that if you die, they're gonna eat you. That's even weirder. It's like, they're so beautiful, but they're gonna recycle you. And they don't do it because they hate you. It's just how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them. Noor says, what's your biggest challenge after becoming Muslim until now? And what do you love the most? Biggest challenge I would say is avoiding riba, interest. Because everything requires interest. So I'm not able to participate in certain things because I try to avoid interest. And that's been very hard. Very hard. And then I would say, what do I love the most? Studying hadith. I really do love that so much. It makes me happy. Even though people made fun of me when I first started, they told me I'd never finish. They said I was being dangerous. I was being an extremist by reading hadith. It was so strange how people attacked me for it. That's a great question, Noor. Thank you. But not participating in riba is very hard in America, and I may never be able to own a house. There's not enough Muslim banks. It's really quite sad. Because I don't want to have a bunch of debt. I really don't. Baberji says, you should write a book. I've been thinking about that a lot recently. I really have. Because I have read so much literature, and I'm pretty good at rhetoric and imagination and creativity, and I thought, why don't I put that to work? I really thought about that. Thank you for saying that. Magic says, cats probably eat the most dead humans. Wild ones for sure. If your cat is locked in your apartment with you and they have no choice, then I can't really blame them. I wish I could have a Persian cat and I could name it Mayonnaise. Do you know the Persian cats who have the very grumpy faces? The shmush grumpy faces? I like those cats because they look very grumpy, and I think that's awesome. I like cats that look like they're grumpy. And I want it to be white or cream colored, and I want to name it Mayonnaise. But my husband said I can't have a cat because he doesn't want the hair everywhere. He doesn't want that cat to go on his bed and get hair on his bed. So I can't have a cat right now. Magic says, you're not allowed to buy a brand new car in full without financing. Yeah, car loans, it's wild, man. And some car lots, like they say, when you get the car loan, from my husband told me, if I'm understanding right, you can't quickly pay off the car. You set the amount you're going to pay every month and pay that amount. And you can't pay more than the amount you agreed to every month. And that's hard. And that's weird. So interest traps people. And, man, I really hope we can find a way to fix it in the future. But I can't go to a fancy university unless I get pay for it myself or find a way to get what they call like a no interest loan from a Muslim bank. Not that I'm gonna go to university right now, but I got invitations from Georgetown University, Cornell, and Columbia, and they used to send me a bunch of like, please apply here, and I believe it's called the Arizona Honors College. That's the long name of it. They would send me like, please apply, we'll do this financing, but I can't because I just can't do that, you know. I just can't do that. It's not good. Huri says, did you watch Squid Game 2? Yes. I've watched it now, I think, 2 or 3 times. I'm doing a deep dive into it. Nor says, if you can't avoid conventional banking system, Liba, it's okay to use the system functionally as long as you don't intend to make profits from the activities because you don't have a choice. Very fair point. Yeah, maybe in the future I can learn more about all the rules. But it's just a very strange system. Everything is debt here. Debt for your mortgage, debt for your car, debt for college, debt for your health care. It's like, how is that sustainable? It wasn't like that, 100 years ago. So why did people feel like we have to change that system? Why would a nation want all their people in debt? That's just bizarre to me. I don't really see the point of all that. Like, why don't they want their people to have capital? Adim says, I think university degrees are overrated. They don't teach you any skills, just concepts. It's better to opt for certifications. I totally agree with that. Yeah, like for me to study history, theology, and philosophy, I mean, I can do that on my own with my grit. And for culinary arts school, I'm not going to go be a chef for a restaurant. That part of my life is over. I can just be a chef. And then if I want to sell my services, I'll do it for like older retired couples and be their personal chef in their home for a certain amount of time. You see what I'm saying? As long as you have your food handler's permit and basic, licensing from the Civic Center, you're going to be fine. Chirolo says, wow, Reba everywhere. You are right. It really is. Magic says, Muslim banks are dominating the British consumer banker scene. For real? I didn't know that. I'm surprised that the people who usually run the banking system allow such a thing. Because interest makes them a lot of money. A lot of money. It's terrible. You see some of these people who took out student loans? It takes them a long time to pay it all back. Over 20 years. And then it's like, if you look at a credit card statement and you miss a payment, they charge you a fee. If you only pay the minimum amount, you're going to end up paying more interest. Like, it's just a trap. And sometimes you got no choice in an emergency but to use a credit card. During the lockdowns, people's savings got wiped out because unemployment was not enough to cover all your bills. And the government stopped you from working because it closed down businesses while bills piled up. So many people lost their financial freedom and were plunged into debt. It's just quite atrocious. Quite atrocious. It's so utterly sad. You just gotta do what you can do. You know what I mean? Hopefully, inshallah, people can figure something out in the future. Inshallah. But yeah, avoiding riba is like going through a maze in America. And when you talk to people that you don't want to participate in interest, they get very confused as like, why? And then when you start to explain it to them, you're like, oh, I see what you mean. But people gotta be willing to listen. You know what I mean? Okay, fam, I'm really hungry now. Oh, John says, I wish I can get sober like you someday. You can. You can, inshallah. You totally can. You know, there's also ways where you can just look at the different diseases that come from certain intoxicants. So let's say you're addicted to cocaine. You know, you look up the images of what damages that does to your body. You can actually, scare yourself straight. Some people need different methods to cure themselves of that addiction, but it is possible. It is possible. And you have to have faith that it can be. And you have to change your friends, you know? There's some friends who they don't want to be sober and they're always high. Think of that scene in The Sopranos where Christopher Moltisanti doesn't want to drink and Tony makes fun of him and they all make fun of him and that literally causes him to use again and then they end up murking him because he got in a car crash while he was high up. So I always that scene always sticks in my head where people will want you to get sober and then when you get sober they mock you and then when you relapse they hate you even more. So some people, if they're around people who enable that type of addiction, is going to be a problem. Be a huge problem. You know what I mean? So just really look out for people who will tell you like keep drinking or let's go out on Saturday night and buy a round in the bar. And then you look at how much it costs per beer. Some cocktails are $14. Guys will spend $14 for this girl's drink, hoping that she flirts with them and gives them a number, plus his food. Like, drinking culture really empties your wallet. Really, really does. And, man, the amount of people who throw up or accidentally urinate on themselves, I mean, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And some people, they get woken up from an overdose or alcohol poisoning, or their child is born with alcohol fetal syndrome. Sometimes people learn to get sober because of a very negative experience. May Allah protect us. But, going to funerals and watching someone slowly wither away because of their addiction, that can really shock you. Can really open your eyes to the depravity of it all. But it's hard to stay sober when America pushes intoxicants. Alcoholism is Western values. You can't tell me it's not. Because of how much it's advertised during the Super Bowl, they sell you beer in the sports stadium and then people fight. I mean, mixing beer and sports is a crazy combo. That's a crazy combo. You know what I mean? And man, John says, don't you miss the hangover days? I wasn't really a drinker, but I didn't like that feeling of a hangover. They would say, oh, crack some eggs, raw eggs, mix it with orange juice, and eat it, like drink it, and like everybody has all these cures for the hangovers, but no, I don't like feeling weak and dizzy. I like to feel strong, alert, full of energy, and I don't like feeling tired. I like to feel potent, like I'm ready, because I have a security mindset. I don't trust people. I keep my head on a swivel. I pause and look at the beauty of nature, but I never let my guard down, because America is filled with crime. And I don't trust nurses very much. I've had horrible experiences with nurses. And so as long as I can be healthy and avoid the hospital, the better. And if you're drunk and you get your leg hurt or something, you gotta be in the hospital, I'm scared of nurses. I've had so many bad experiences with nurses, and it's always a female nurse. I don't want to be at their power. I don't want to be sick in the hospital with a mean female nurse being mean to me, and I'm too weak to defend myself while she pinches me, insults me, or hurts me. I don't. Every time I'm in a doctor's office, like, or a medical building, I want to get in and get out. You know, uh, you gotta be so careful. Adim says, "Be like Doomslayer." Who's that? Is that like a comic book character? Who's that? Is that a video game character? Is that part of the 40k Warhammer universe? I haven't heard of that character. Wait a minute. Is is the Doom guy the one who looks kind of like Spider-Man, who wears red and black? I don't know. Isn't Slayer... That's like a heavy metal band, isn't it? Oh, video game character from Doom. I never played Doom. I get it. Doom is... A lot of people have talked about Doom, but I've never played it. My favorite games are Red Dead Redemption 2, the Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I like those games. Yeah, Red Dead Redemption is #1 for me. But I haven't played video games. I haven't opened up my PlayStation. I think it's been, my God, 3 or 4 years. Because I can get very addicted to video games. The Last of Us, I never played, but I watched it. I watched the video game, MK Ice and Fire. He plays it, and I watch him play. Now I watch people play. Because as a mom, I can't play because I have to take care of the children. But if I'm, like, working with my hands, doing some craft, and the children are taking a nap, I can turn on the video game on my phone and watch somebody else play. You know? And I like when they play, I don't want them to talk. I don't want to see the gamer's face. I just want to see the game like if it's a movie. That's what I like. Rad Brad is an exception because he's funny. But for the, like, when men watch women play video games, they're looking at the woman. They're not really looking at the game, in my opinion. And I've never seen a good female gamer. I'm not a good gamer. I mean, I really struggled with so many games. You know, it's hard. It's very hard. But you know, men play better, and they do more action moves, in my opinion. You know. Nora says, you should make videos with your husband once in a while. We want to see his opinions on things. I have to protect him though, fam. Because people don't like me. And, you know, remember I got hacked about 4 years ago. And those hackers really destroyed my online business. They took it over. They tried to... oh man, it's a long story, but they took over accounts. I had to fight to get it back. I had to change my bank account. And I had another online business, and then these trolls false flagged it to where I got suspended for 3 months. So every time I share something personal, people attack it. And I don't want someone to realize who he is and then dox us and then make him lose his job, his multiple jobs, because they hate me. Because there's people who don't like me and they want to they would want to hurt my family, you know. But I get what you're saying. He has a heavy Mexican accent, so he likes to talk about Mexican politics most of the time. So he mostly focuses on Mexican politics and things like that. So, you know, that's mainly his interest. And working out. He likes working out, and that's really the only things he talks about. Working out and Mexican politics. You know. Cafe Espresso says, alcohol is like a curse on Western societies. That is very, very true. Very true. John says, Doomslayer, it's like Furio Guinta from The Sopranos. Furio! I remember Furio. Isn't that the one who fell in love with Carmela? That's funny. Barbara says, it's not safe being on the internet. Yeah, it's very intense. Loco Lico, Assalamu alaikum. Doing pretty good, doing pretty good. You know. Okay, fam, I'm getting hungry. We've done a nice long stream. I haven't done a stream in a while. Thank you for showing up. Um, Usually people don't even get notified that I do live streams. So I'm very thankful that there's more than 2 people in the chat, that you all participated, and that, excuse me, I still have a bit of a sinus problem. Pardon me. My sinuses have really been acting up lately, and it's been hard. But I appreciate all of you for showing up. Somehow, I mean, you have no idea. It's always nice to hear different questions, different perspectives, see how you all are doing, interact with you. Um, you know, and because the schools are on winter break, I have more time to record, and had time to do this live stream. So, that makes me really happy. So take care, fam. Norse, you're from Indonesia. Oh, nice. Nice. Take care. Thanks, Loco. Yeah, you don't get notified. Yeah, too many people don't get notified. And so I'm glad for those who were able to come and show up. I know you all have different time zones, and I have a different time zone. So getting at the right time is difficult, you know. So I'm gonna go eat, and then prayer time's gonna be pretty soon. So take care. Until next time. See you later.